All right, thank you everyone for coming to our presentation. So I'm with AIRWAAV, Performance Mouthpieces, and we're here at the ABCA convention this year. We're at booth 536. Really excited to be here and excited to meet potentially all of you. Probably have already met some of you throughout the day today. We're going to be here all weekend. So for sure, stop by. We got great deals going on right now. 50% off of single mouthpieces and then 60% off team orders. So definitely want to meet all of you. Feel free to stop by. Again, really excited to be here. We have a great panel lined up. So here today we have Dan Perlmutter from Duke University. He's the Director of Sports Performance at Duke. We have Anthony Silva. He is current sophomore at TCU. He was a freshman All-American last year, shortstop, started all their games, big advocate of AIRWAAV. And then Brendan Donovan as well, current big leaguer, plays for the St. Louis Cardinals. I'm sure a lot of you recognize him as well. Really pumped that they all could be here today. I'm going to pick their brain a little bit about AIRWAAV and just hopefully you guys can learn a little bit more about our product, how it works, and the benefits of it. So I'm just going to do a quick kind of rundown of our product, kind of the benefits of it, and then we'll get into the questions. So I'm going to talk as little as possible, get these guys talking, and we'll get going. So did want to touch on real quick, in case those who aren't familiar, performance mouthpieces aren't necessarily new to baseball. They've actually been around for quite a while. There was a product with Under Armour about 10, 15 years ago. Actually, our chief marketing officer kind of spearheaded the efforts with that mouthpiece through Under Armour. And I mean, some of the biggest names in baseball at the time were wearing it, right? You can see on the screen there, David Price, Derek Jeter, Ryan Braun, Manny Ramirez. So some of the biggest names in baseball were wearing it at that time. And so mouthpieces have been really around within this sport for a while. You can see another slide here with a few other athletes that wore that Under Armour product. And then here, even outside of baseball, we had the best athletes within sports really wearing these mouthpieces. And it was tough because there wasn't a lot of science around it, not a ton of research. A lot of people just didn't really know how it worked, what it did. But they knew that it benefited them. And so they wore it and they backed it. But at AIRWAAV, we kind of perfected it and we brought it back a couple years ago. And this is our product. You can kind of see it on the screen here. And essentially what the AIRWAAV Performance Mouthpiece does is it opens up your airway and optimizes your breathing. And so when you bite down on it and put your tongue underneath the intake bar, which as you can see kind of the red bar in the front, that's the intake bar. And when you put your tongue underneath that, that's how you optimize your breathing. And it opens up your airway. And like we like to say at AIRWAAV that it acts almost as fuel injection for your lungs and muscles. And so how that works is essentially when you bite down on the mouthpiece, you put your tongue under that intake bar, you're getting more oxygen into your lungs. And so we see benefits like increased bat speed, increased exit velo from hitting. And then from the pitching standpoint, we see increased endurance on the mound because, I mean, for AIRWAAV, when we first got started, it was mainly in the CrossFit, powerlifting, and we're still very much involved within that industry. But some of the top CrossFit and powerlifting athletes in the world wear our mouthpieces. And so from an endurance standpoint, from a strength standpoint, there's a lot of benefits to wearing our mouthpiece. And again, it opens up your airway and it almost acts as fuel injection for your lungs and muscles. So lots of benefits from a baseball standpoint as well. Kind of like I mentioned, the increased bat speed. We had a study done at Florida Southern College, peer-reviewed study, that found that with mouthpiece in, while clenching, you see up to a 6% increase in bat speed, which also obviously leads to an increase in exit velo, which is, I mean, huge for all you baseball people. Obviously, singles into doubles, doubles into triples, warning track fly balls into home runs. That little bit of bat speed can make a big difference. Also, increased endurance. From the pitching standpoint, that obviously helps a lot, and we've heard from a lot of pitchers that they're able to maintain their velocity deeper into their starts. They feel fresher in the late innings, which is obviously a huge deal from the pitching side of things. So we've already touched on benefits for hitting, benefits for pitching. It kind of touches on both sides of the ball in that way. And then also faster recovery times, obviously also huge for pitchers. There's a reduction in cortisol buildup as well as lactic acid while wearing our mouthpiece. So when you're biting down on it, that creates that reduction in cortisol buildup. So while you're either working out or either a pitcher pitching, I mean, obviously after a pitcher pitches, their arm's sore, right? Well, with our product, that will be lessened by wearing our product because of the reduction in cortisol buildup, the reduction in lactic acid buildup. And so hopefully they're able to turn around and pitch maybe a little bit sooner. But also from a training standpoint, if you have guys in the weight room working out a lot, our mouthpieces, if worn while training, will help them bounce back quicker, recover quicker while they work out. So a lot of benefits to it, both from the training aspect and the on-field aspect. So certainly been exciting to see that. Here's some peer-reviewed published research that we do have. I'm not going to go through all of this right now, but it is on our website for you to check out, as well as our bat swing speed study. That's on there as well, so feel free to go check that out. It's all there for you to go and look at. So again, feel free to go check that out at your convenience. I won't go through it right now. Here is a little bit on that bat swing speed study, though. Did want to just touch on it real quick. And so, again, at Florida Southern College, you can see kind of the comparison there of the players when they wore the mouthpiece versus when they didn't. And you can see the increase in swing speed velocity when they were wearing the mouthpiece and clenching. And again, it's that 5.8% increase in bat swing speed. And again, that was a peer-reviewed research study that was done. We had no part in it, but they kind of conducted their own research and found that out. So that's a huge deal for us, and it's one of our main drivers into what we push when we're talking to baseball players is that swing speed increase. Here's just a quick snapshot of some college baseball programs using AIRWAAV. Obviously, logos hold a lot of weight, especially some of these logos, some of the top programs in the country. And this is just kind of, again, a snapshot. We have a lot of other programs, D1, D2, D3, a lot of minor league players wearing it, a lot of big leaguers wearing it. So it's been really exciting seeing kind of the momentum within baseball that we've seen. We have guys basically at every major conference wearing this thing. We have guys all up and down the minor leagues wearing this thing. And they see the benefits of it, either from, it kind of ranges, right? Some guys, they definitely see that bat swing speed effect. Some guys, they see reduction in tension within the batter's box. So there's certainly that side of it as well. And then from the pitching standpoint, kind of like I talked about, there's that endurance piece. And then everybody benefits from it from a training perspective. So when you're in the weight room, everybody can see the benefits of that in terms of increased strength, increased endurance. We do like to be careful. It doesn't make you stronger, but it helps you kind of unlock that extra level of strength that maybe you haven't been able to unlock before. And so our mouthpiece helps with that. And so it's pretty neat to see. Here's our technology. We like to call it one technology, two designs. It's very similar. Both products are very similar. You get the same benefits. It just kind of depends on preference. So I did want to go through this real quick before we get to our panel, just to kind of touch on the product a little bit so you familiarize yourself with it. So the one on the left there is our AIRWAAV Hit, the red mouthpiece. And that one is a little bit of a looser fit. You can fidget with it in your mouth in between pitches or whatever the case may be. A lot of baseball players do like wearing that one in-game because they are able to fidget with it. The one on the right is the AIRWAAV Endurance. It's our orange mouthpiece. It's more of a lockdown fit, so it doesn't come up off your teeth when you unclench your jaw. And so from that standpoint, it's just really a basis of preference. Like, what do you prefer? Do you prefer that looser fit or the more lockdown fit? So from a technology standpoint, a product standpoint, that's really the only difference is preference. Both of these mouthpieces, they do the same thing. It's just based on preference. All right, now to get to our panel, the reason a lot of you are here. So again, we have our panel here, Brendan Donovan, Anthony Silva, and Dan Perlmutter. So really excited to kind of get their thoughts on AIRWAAV and just their experience. All these guys have been using AIRWAAV for a while now. They're big advocates of it. So we're really excited to have them here. I did want to touch on Dan first, because Dan, we've been working together for a little while, and you started to kind of seed our AIRWAAV mouthpieces within Duke Athletics, different programs. So I did just kind of want you to tell us a little bit about your role at Duke, and as a director of sports performance, how did you kind of come across AIRWAAV, and what led you to kind of want to use it with your athletes?
Yeah, I think, first of all, thanks for having me here. It's real exciting to be on stage with these guys, much more impressive guys than me, so I appreciate it. My role at Duke is overseeing the sports performance department that works with 24 of our varsity Olympic sports, and then we have other facilities for football and basketball that are both fully staffed. So I'm fortunate enough to be exposed to athletes and teams from a variety of different sports, and to see how much of an overlap there is in different types of training among different sports. I came across AIRWAAV through social media originally. I thought the marketing was great. Saw some folks in baseball using it, and got excited for the possibility of what it could do as a potential benefit for a lot of our different athletes. Now, in the baseball world, my role as the head sports performance guy for the baseball program is to, the bigger, faster, stronger piece is historically under the purview of somebody in my position, but we're not just a weight room staff. My role is more of kind of a coordinator of all the different types of activities that are going to help our baseball guys prepare to be at their best on the field. Now, that may sound very basic, but sometimes that kind of connection gets overlooked. So we're going to be lifting, we're going to be doing conditioning, we're doing speed development, we're doing power development, but we're also really connected to our mental performance work, our rehab and recovery work, our return to play protocols. And to have a tool like this that can benefit an athlete in all of those different areas and those overlaps of what they do to prepare to be at their best on the game field has been a really, really big benefit for us.
For sure. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Anthony, I want to go over to you. Obviously, in college, just completed your first year, but just kind of curious how you found out about AIRWAAV and, I mean, just what your initial thoughts were on the product. I mean, it's obviously a brand new thing, but as an elite athlete at the college level, you're not going to necessarily partner or try a product that you don't believe in. So I'm just kind of curious how you found out about AIRWAAV and just your story with that.
Yeah, so I just saw Harrison Bader wearing it. Used to be a Yankees guy, just got traded to the Mets or signed with the Mets. So I thought he was pretty cool wearing it, kind of added a little bit of swag or drip, whatever you want to call it. So I looked it up and looked more into it, and I realized there was a lot of benefits to wearing it. Helps you breathe a lot better, helps you produce more strength. So that's how I became really interested in it, and yeah, I've been using it ever since. So
awesome, appreciate that. And then Brendan, obviously you've been going through kind of rehab this off season, but would love to just kind of hear your AIRWAAV story, how you found out about it, and just your kind of process of using it through rehab this off season, kind of how that's been going.
Yeah, so I played with Bader 2022 before he got traded to the Yankees. And this past season, I tore my UCL. So for me, it's like anything performance-wise, I'll try anything. And my agent was like, hey, have you heard of the AIRWAAV? I said, I've seen Bader wearing it, but I've never tried it myself. I'm down to try it. So whenever you're stuck in your brace for a month and you have like your return to activity protocol, it's like when you can start sweating again. We started experimenting with some recovery modalities. We started using the cold plunge. Get in the cold plunge and immediately I'm hyperventilating. I'm like, get me the heck out of this thing. And my PT and I were like, hey, let's try the mouthpiece in the cold plunge. Jump in the cold plunge. I'm able to catch my breath a little quicker, go a little longer, so I'm getting extra benefits from that. Now we're starting to get a little more of a sweat on. It's like, hey, the next day we got some bike sprints, and I did it the week before, and it was just a disaster, right? I hate the bike. My breath is all over the place. Lactic acid in my legs. It's just going crazy. He's like, hey, let's throw the mouthpiece in again. It's like, let's try it. Throw the mouthpiece in. My wattage is higher. I go 2 extra rounds. I'm not like I'm walking down an escalator, like my legs are just not stable as I get off the bike. I'm like, all right. So we try it with jump height. Jump height is a little bit higher. All right, let's try it with hitting. We're starting to build into hitting, right? I'm 5 months removed from a UCL surgery, and I'm at where I was when I wasn't injured, when I was healthy, and I'm still building. So it's like it shows me I'm getting more out of my body. And then the important thing for me is like while I'm going through my throwing processes, when you have an elbow surgery, all you want to do is you want to compensate for your elbow. You don't want to use your body. When I'm able to bite down on that mouthpiece, I'm not compensating for my elbow. I'm able to get that last bit of extension on my throws and finish my throws. So for me, it's like I tested it in every aspect of my PT, my training, my baseball specific. So that's why I'm here, because I believe in the product, and that's a little bit about my story.
I love it. Appreciate it. Dan, kind of back to you. I'd love to just kind of for you to go through just your holistic approach to working with athletes and how you feel AIRWAAV kind of benefits your athletes, how it helps them.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought Brendan made a couple really, really good points there about breath control and heart rate control, but then in general about body awareness. And I think, the way that I've approached training for our guys for years now is the body awareness piece, helping them become better in organizing themselves when they play, organizing themselves physically, organizing themselves mentally, organizing themselves emotionally. And what do you mean by that? It's developing all the physical and mental tools that you need to use when you play, but in the moment, in whatever task you're doing, having good body awareness, good proprioception, good kinesthetic awareness, knowing where your limbs are in space, knowing what your body's capable of and what your limits might be, and then being able to push through limits like that. So I think the mouth guard has allowed our guys who are already looking through that lens of getting better physically and getting better self-awareness so they can be better baseball players, is it helps them organize their body. How does it do that? It helps them control their breathing, which then helps them control their heart rate. And I think those are two things that we don't do enough of in this sport yet. But I think as guys have learned to get better at breath control, and through the breath control, get better at heart rate control, it's made all the other activities that they do more effective. It's made the strength work more effective, the power work more effective, the cardio system, the energy system and metabolism development more effective, and the baseball skill stuff more effective as well, because they have more control of the physical capabilities in any of those activities.
Right. No, for sure. That's a great point. And then Anthony, just as, starting shortstop for TCU, how has wearing AIRWAAV impacted your performance on the field? And are there specific aspects of your game where you feel like maybe this could help you in game or kind of help you improve even potentially? I'd just love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, it just helps me stay relaxed. Fielding, hitting, and even running in the whole game of baseball, you want to be as relaxed as possible, because that's when you perform at your best. If you're tensed up, you won't perform as well as you could or should be doing. So I think on the field helps my jaw less clenched and helps my body be more relaxed. Running too, I noticed I've gotten faster, because I've been more relaxed wearing it just by getting times with our strength guys. So, and then hitting too, I'm able to stay more fluid and more consistent with that mouthpiece, and so.
No, that's good. Appreciate it. And Brendan, obviously you're planning on wearing this in-game as well. I'd love to just hear your thoughts on how you feel that it could benefit your game, especially in-game, and what are maybe some specific situations where you feel like AIRWAAV might be able to help you.
Yeah, I plan on wearing this throughout the season. So one of the big things for me is I'm a little more relaxed. That means I'm not tensing up. You touched on it. It's that means my body's more fluid, and it gives me a chance to flush more balls up, right? If I can hit more balls square, I can hit more balls over 95, more balls over 100 miles an hour. That's a plus to me. Not to mention, I'm swinging faster without trying anything, right? I'm not big on change, right? I'm big on adjustments, right? So could I create speed by making changes? Absolutely. But all I got to do is pop this thing in my mouth, and now I'm getting a little extra boost in speed. For me, that's an increase in performance. I'm the same guy. I'm just getting a little bit more by not making changes. And then another thing too is with the pitch clock, the game's getting faster, right? They're speeding things up. Your time to process and react to things is getting shorter. So now I'm a big believer, if you can control your breath, you can control your mind, and then you can control your body. So I have this thing in my mouth. I'm in a more of a relaxed state. I'm more aware of my breath. My respiratory rate is better. So now the game won't speed up on me.
No, that's really good. Dan, as a sports performance coach, are there specific criteria or markers that maybe you use to study maybe the effectiveness of something like an AIRWAAV mouthpiece? How do you measure that, and how do you measure its impact on an athlete?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And Brent and I were actually just talking about this before the session started. I think there's a lot of different opportunities to gauge the effectiveness of this as a tool. You can tie it into any kind of assessment program that you have for your players, whether it's strength testing, mobility testing, cardiovascular work, specific skill testing on the field. I think there's an opportunity to see how effective AIRWAAV can be in all of those settings. As we start to do more velocity-based training, going into preseason now, we have a new velocity-based training system in our main training facility now. We're going to assess our guys every day they come in the room as part of their training. And for guys that are using the mouth guard, we're going to have both guard in and guard out testing with those guys so that we can start to look at some of the game speed type of movements that they do, whether they're body weight only or loaded exercises, whether they're speed-based, power-based, or strength-based, so that we can see what kind of impact they have. Qualitatively, the feedback that we got from the guys in the off-season is that they feel better, they feel more relaxed, they feel stronger, they feel more in the moment when they're wearing the AIRWAAV guard. And that is a huge part of how we coach things and our expectations of our guys, is that we want to give them some tools to be able to be in the moment, one pitch at a time, one rep at a time, one steal at a time, one defensive play at a time. But we can't just say that. We've got to actually give them a program of tools that they can choose that will help them to do those things. I think this is one of those really, really good tools that's going to help quite a few of our guys.
For sure. No, that was great. Anthony, did want to touch on just your experience with AIRWAAV in the weight room. Obviously, you've kind of incorporated it into your off-season routine. Just kind of curious how that's gone, how that process has looked, and then have you noticed any effects on your training or your recovery while wearing it?
Yeah, so I'm a big teeth grinder whenever I lift, especially when I'm lifting heavy. So that was the first thing I noticed. It helped me not grind my teeth whenever I lift. So I mean, and that just rolls into just staying more relaxed and being able to produce more power. I was curious to see it if it was actually working. So I tried it with and without the mouthpiece, and it was working. Even if it was just by a little bit, it was still helping. So and then when I run, like I said earlier, when I do sprints, I throw it in, and I run a little quicker too, because it helps me stay more relaxed, and yeah, it helps me move quicker.
Well, that's really good. I appreciate it. Brendan, I think you kind of already touched on maybe a couple of these, but could you highlight maybe any instances or scenarios where maybe you felt AIRWAAV made a noticeable difference in your performance or your recovery, and how did it kind of enhance your overall athletic experience, I guess?
Yeah, so I touched on it a little bit. I tested with the cold plunge. I tested it on sprinting. For me, sprinting, I would clench my jaw and I would reach forward like this. So that threw off my cycle, it threw off my technique, throw the mouthpiece in. I'm able to stay in my columns a little more. Same thing, increase foot speed, sprint speed, swing speed, right? I did it tracking with a TrackMan and a Blast, and I saw tick ups in both. Throwing, I have to track everything with a pocket radar. I started to see, we're talking about 1%, right? 1% is huge. If I can hit the ball 1% harder, that's 25 expected slugging points. That's my goal this offseason going into next year. I want to hit the ball 1% harder. So this is giving me an opportunity to do that. And for me, I've seen it. I've seen the results using all those different things: Blast, TrackMan, sprint speed, the cold plunge, the wattage on the bike. I've tried it. So that's why I believe in it, because I've tried it in every aspect of my training.
Yeah. And that's something that we hear a lot is, just getting that 1%, that extra 1%. And we heard that from Bader, and we heard that from you as well. And I just think that's so true. If AIRWAAV can just give you that extra just 1%, why not give it a shot? And I just think that this product can do that. So we've definitely heard that from a lot of people. So it's just interesting to hear you kind of echo that. Dan, from a coaching perspective, kind of how do you assess the overall impact of AIRWAAV on athletes at Duke, and for athletes maybe trying it for the first time, for coaches in the audience who maybe are a little skeptical of having their athletes try something like this without ever maybe hearing about it before, or trying something like this? Kind of what's your advice or feedback on that for people trying it for the first time?
Yeah, well, excuse me. I think Anthony and Brendan both made really good points earlier on. There's lots of stuff out there now that you can add in as a supplement to your normal training equipment or your normal practice equipment that can potentially make you better. And having the willingness to try the stuff and see if it has an impact on you, that light bulb moment for the athlete is sometimes the most powerful piece of data that we get. You can get your measured force plate data. You can get your measured speed data. You can get your measured heart rate and your measured breathing rate data. And that has all been very positive for us across a bunch of sports. But I think what's been most powerful is the feedback from our athletes who have been willing to take the plunge, so to speak, initially, but then have given us pretty universally very, very positive feedback about how it helps in all the different areas that we've worked on. The other thing that I wanted to mention is when it comes to wellness for your athletes, Matt didn't talk about it in the initial section, but the recovery mouth guard that folks can wear when they sleep, that has been some of our most positive feedback from some of our athletes that have had sleeping issues. And when we talk about a holistic approach or a comprehensive approach to training an athlete, it's not just them stepping foot into the weight room, them stepping foot onto the field. They don't become a non-athlete for the rest of the day. They're still an athlete. So all of those recovery activities that happen outside their time with us have an impact on those small percentage gains that these guys have been talking about. So the recovery guard for us, if we can get guys to get 1, 2, 5, 10, 20% better quality sleep, it's better for them. It's better for their roommates. If they're a guy that snores and then stops snoring, it's better for the team as a whole because they're putting a better version of themselves onto the field every day, better version of themselves into the weight room with me every day. For sure. So I think there's a ton of different ways that you can assess.
Yeah. And yeah, I probably should have touched on our recovery mouth guard. Honestly, it's one of our best sellers right now, and it really has taken off in the last couple of months. It's a product that you can sleep in, and there's technology built into it that actually helps keep your tongue in position during the night. So that way you're maybe reducing snoring and all that. So I think it's a really great option for you if you don't sleep great. You want to try something. This is a great option for that. So I definitely encourage that. We can certainly tell you more about that at our booth as well. Our AIRWAAV recovery mouthpiece has been kind of just flying off the shelves lately. We can barely keep up. So I did certainly want to touch on that for sure. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Anthony, I mean, as a shortstop, I mean, precision and focus, obviously, at that position are pretty crucial. How do you feel that AIRWAAV contributes to just maintaining that mental focus while you're playing, and also your concentration during high-pressure spots on the field?
Yeah, so for me, the mental game is really like the biggest thing is just breathing, especially in those high-pressure situations. So yeah, it helps. It's kind of like a physical reminder to me. To like be able to slow myself down and breathe slower, to be able to slow my heart rate down, because the last thing you want in a high pressure situation is for your heart rate to be super fast and then you mess up. So I think that's the biggest thing for me during those situations, and it's helped me a lot in that way.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Brendan, I mean, you've touched on it a little bit, but could you just touch on that a little bit, just performing in high pressure spots and how the AIRWAAV could help you with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So breathing is extremely important. You guys have both hit on it. It's like, and I talked about it with the game clock. I believe the game clock is going to get shortened from 20 to 18 seconds this year. So I have to be able to process information a little faster. Not to mention the increase in fastball velocity as well as breaking pitches. So now I have to process information a little faster too in the box. So if I can be aware of my breathing, then I can control my body. And that's a big thing for me. It's like keeping me in a state of relax. Like for me, when I'm in the box, I'm at my best. I'm in that flow state when I almost feel like I'm asleep in the box, right? Like the world could be crashing down around me and I feel relaxed. I'm able to process that information. In the field as well, right? I'm in the moment. I'm present. It's just, you notice when you don't have it in because your breath is spiked. You're all over the place. And not to mention, you hit on it as well, as like proprioception as well, like balance. All these things coincide with your breath.
No, for sure. And Brendan, I'll stick with you just for this next question. What would be maybe some advice you would give to athletes who may be nervous about trying something like a mouthpiece for the first time? Like, what would just be your advice to those athletes in terms of implementing it, trying it? I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, so for me, like my philosophy is like when I'm trying to try a new thing, it's like I'll try anything. If I think it gives me a little bit of a boost in performance, I will try anything. And if I don't like it, oh well, I'm not second guessing it at all. It's like, I know it doesn't work. For this, I knew it worked for me. So if you're thinking about trying it, I would just say give it a shot. For me, I noticed a difference, but I tried it with everything. I was like, if it may work for one thing, but it may not work for the next. But I saw an improvement in everything. So, and then two, and with an elbow rehab as well, I'm going to use it in game, but I use it with rehab too. It's a holistic approach. I'm not just rehabbing my elbow, right? I'm rehabbing my entire body. This is a byproduct of something else happening. So I'm rehabbing my brain, I'm rehabbing my body, and I'm rehabbing my elbow. So for me, it was just it was the last piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, no, for sure. That was really good. And Anthony, I mean, as a highly competitive college baseball player, I mean, you're with guys all the time that are trying to get better. I'm just kind of curious on your team's reception to when you first started using AIRWAAV, what kind of their thoughts were, if there was any interest in adopting AIRWAAV, and just kind of what the reception was around the team when you started using it.
Yeah, so they kind of made fun of me at first for wearing it in the weight room. They just thought I wanted to try and be cool and wanted attention on myself. But I wouldn't say anything, and then they started bugging me a little bit more. So I told them the benefits and all that, and I told them about my sprint speed. I'd be like, watch, like, I'm going to be faster this week than last week. And it was true. So they stopped making fun of me, and one of the players actually got it. So, and he stopped bugging me after that. So I was the winner in that argument. But yeah, no, a lot of the guys expressed interest in it for sure.
Very cool. And then Dan, I mean, in distributing AIRWAAV to Duke athletes, did you encounter any initial skepticism or concerns? And then kind of how did you address those concerns? What has been the general just reception among athletes that you've given this to?
Yeah, I would say we haven't really seen any concerns. I think we saw more curiosity at first. And as I mentioned earlier, that willingness to try something that would make what they do already better. I think we get pretty curious kids that come to Duke in general, whether they're student athletes or not. But certainly the folks on our teams really have an open mind about trying new things. And I think in a program where you have 23, 24 teams all training in the same facility throughout the week, all these guys know each other. They all have friends on other teams and other sports. So someone that's kind of preaching the gospel for you, so to speak, can be one of your biggest advocates. And I think we saw the flip side of it. We didn't see concerns. We saw more people coming to us and saying, I want to try this. I want to do this. I see how it works for this sport. I see how it works for that sport. I want it to help me.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah.
I did want to leave a little bit of time for Q&A. We got about 15 minutes left. So if you have any questions, I have a couple mics here. So obviously raise your hand if you have a question for either myself or any of these three on anything. So feel free to ask at this point.
Hey guys, I just want to know what age, especially you, Dan, might recommend for an athlete to start using something like this. Got a 12 and a 14-year-old daughter at home that are...
Yeah. I don't think there's necessarily a lower limit as long as the thing fits. I think development of athletes at a young age is always a sticky topic across sports. But I think if you have good people working with younger athletes and you have a good system in place and good plans, I think you can start to do stuff that other folks might see as too advanced when an athlete's really young. Younger athletes have the benefit oftentimes of being a lot more coachable because they are a blank slate, so to speak. And I don't mean uncoachable in terms of willingness to be coached. It's that they haven't learned as much yet, so they don't have to unlearn as much. Sometimes we get freshmen that come in that have a really long training history, and we may teach things a certain way that's a little bit different than what they've come in with, right? So you get an 18, 19-year-old guy that has to unlearn some stuff and then relearn a different way to do it. With a younger athlete, that's not always the case. So I think you have the benefit of getting a jump start with a device like this that would benefit that athlete, and then just have them get more years under their belt of making their training activities and their skill work more effective. But I don't think there's a concern over something like this as long as you have the right people surrounding that athlete, teaching things the right way, coaching things at the appropriate age level and the appropriate skill level.
I've got two questions. The first is for Brendan and Anthony. Brendan, you mentioned 1% improvement in slugging percentage. I'd love to hear from both your perspectives at the major league level and at the collegiate level. What does 1% improvement mean to an athlete as you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean, you're at the highest level, right? Everybody's looking for something. For me, it's like 1%. And why do I want 1%? Why do I want to hit the ball 1% harder? It's because if I hit the ball 1% harder on average, my expected slugging percentage goes up by 25 points. 25 points is a lot of points, especially in a business where you can get to arbitration or free agency. That's talking about setting your family up for success. Not to mention helping your team, the production that fly out to the warning track you talked about, that ground ball in the 4-hole. Now that there's not shift rules, that ground ball in the 4-hole may get through if I hit it 1% harder. Over the course of 162 games in the postseason, that is a huge difference.
Yeah, for me, the way I look at that is in college, I mean, at every level, you're battling against the guys next to you. So if you guys have the same skill level, you guys same strength, same everything, and you throw that mouthpiece in and you're 1% better than them, that'll show up on the field, and that could cause you to be a starter or not be a starter. Or if you're not using it and the other guy's wearing it, he could be hitting the ball better than you. So that's the way I look at it. That's that extra edge that you can get against your peers. So that's the way I look at it.
Great. Second question is for Dan. I know you've talked about certain athletes at Duke, some that have seen physical benefits, some that have seen more psychological or emotional benefits. Can you talk about the distinction and how different athletes have responded to it?
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, I think the qualitative feedback that we've gotten has been really positive, but people have had positive experiences in different ways. I think we spend a lot of time with all of our teams trying to get them to understand how the physical development piece will help the mental game for their sport, and how the recovery piece helps the physical and the mental game for both for their sports. So it's really kind of a cyclical nature thing, right? If we're trying to help these athletes get better throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the training phase, throughout the off season, preseason, in season, I think there's so many different areas that an athlete can benefit with this type of thing. I think one of the things that we saw that both of these guys alluded to when they were talking about being in high pressure situations is that idea of consistency and relaxation. That to me is not separated between physical and mental and emotional. You don't do anything in sports in a vacuum. You're not in a tunnel. Things are happening physically and mentally and emotionally all at the same time. So if we can build in some consistency and some relaxation with something like this, it allows athletes to get out of their heads and get into their breath. And that's one of the kind of catchphrases we use. Before we started using AIRWAAV, we were already thinking that way. And what does that mean? It means they use their breath to hit the reset button, to get themselves relaxed physically, mentally, and emotionally, and to start thinking tactically in high pressure situations and not thinking emotionally, not thinking with those kind of no phrases, getting organized in their thinking so they can be present in competition. So we've seen positive feedback in those areas individually, but I don't think we've had anyone that said, hey, it really helps me emotionally, but it doesn't help me physically. I think the athletes are pretty self-aware and they understand that if it helps them emotionally, it is also helping them physically and vice versa.
I guess, Anthony, as an educator, a lot of kids struggle with test anxiety. So if this is helping you in the weight room or on the baseball field, do you use it like for an exam on a test day in the classroom? Because you guys have similar benefits, correct?
Yeah, I honestly haven't even thought of it like that, but I might this next semester I might throw it in and for my math exam or whatever. But that's actually a good idea. Thank you for that. But you could message me on Instagram or something and these upcoming weeks, and I'll let you know for sure. But I didn't even think about it like that's a great idea.
So I was actually a little nervous before I got up here. So when we're leaving the hotel, I threw it in. And I don't know if it worked, but I feel pretty good.
I'll tell you what, I think what we find a lot, I mean, I work in the collegiate world, so I've got student athletes, not just athletes, right? But both of these guys obviously have been successful students at the same time as being good athletes. I think that a student athlete's brain functions in more similar ways within their sport and outside their sport than people give them credit for. I think they use skills on the academic side to be really successful as an athlete, and they use skills on the athletic side to be successful students as well. So I don't see any difference between somebody sitting in an exam and having stress that's caused by one thing. That's no different for me than stress that's caused by something else in an athletic setting. Stress is stress. So if you can have something that helps you relieve that stress to perform whatever task is in front of you, whether it's hand-eye coordination, strength, power, speed, agility, memory, anything that's involved in any of those tasks or any of those assessments or any of those tests, that's going to help you across the board.
My buddy here was asking, what is the cost, for the product?
Yeah, so we have a couple different options. So you can get a single mouthpiece for $40, but for ABCA members, you can get 50% off of that. So we can get you a 50% off discount. So you can get a really good deal on mouthpieces this week. If you want a hybrid pack, those are $60 typically. That's also 50% off. So we can get you that as well at a huge discount. But then we also have an option on our landing page for this week, and we have QR codes all over the place. So make sure you check that out. You can do team orders. You can get a pack of 30 for 60% off. So you can get a great discount this week on mouthpieces, whether it be a single mouthpiece or a pack of 30 for your team. You can get great deals this week, so I definitely encourage you to take advantage of that. All right, I think we're good. Again, thank you so much to our panel. Thank you guys so much for coming. I thought you guys provided just a ton of value to this conversation, and your thoughts and your experience with AIRWAAV has been really valuable. So I really appreciate you guys coming. Again, visit us at booth 536 this week. We're going to be here all weekend. We can get to know you a little bit. You can check out our team orders as well as our single packs where again, great discounts are available. And we just love to meet you and talk with you and teach you a little bit more about our mouthpieces. So again, stop by our booth, and we'll see you this weekend. All right. Thanks, everyone.